always do a lot of videos about domestic violence, and I have been doing videos about post separation legal abuse. I have also been looking into the laws that are surrounding it. And doing the videos on YouTube is one thing, it's designed to be quote unquote boring because I don't have the intros and the outros and graphics and there's not things that can really bring attention to the video being heard in case a victim is trying to secretly find the information and they don't want the abuser to draw attention to it. But behind the scenes, I do a lot of different things that I don't normally just broadcast. Some of it entails helping a victim file a protective order or helping somebody talk to their kids about the abuse that they have witnessed at home, helping people find a counselor, filing court documents when they can't afford a lawyer on their own. There's a lot of things that I have done behind the scenes and I will continue to do. And I do not do them for bragging rights, and I do not do it to get paid. Everything I do is designed strictly to simply help somebody. And so far, for like the last 10 years, I have been very proactive in helping people leave domestic situations. I have helped them outside of Oklahoma as well. I have helped a few people in other countries. I have helped in other states. And I'm going to continue to do so. However, with that being said, it is now time to combine what I do on YouTube and what I do out in the public. I'm never going to include what I do behind closed doors because I'm not going to give an abuser a platform to know what their victim is doing in order to save themselves. So you will never see a victim on here saying, well, in 3 weeks, I'm going to be making this safety plan, and my safety plan includes so and so and so and so. That will never happen. But what will happen is I have reached out to a Democratic representative of Oklahoma. I have yet to hear back, but it's only been a couple of hours, so I still have hope, right? I want to work with the Democratic one primary. And secondary, I am hoping that he can get a Republican that would be involved to create new bills to pass into laws that will expand the domestic violence and post separation legal abuse laws. Because pretty much in Oklahoma, they are non existent. And when I say that, I don't say that lightly. If you are a trans person with a cis person, the cis person carries more rights. It's just how it is. They can use your transition against you, and they have every right to do so because there is no laws that actually prevent that. That plays into emotional abuse or financial abuse when they deny you hormones or they deny you your gender affirming clothing or your haircuts or your salon visits, your nails, your makeup. They prevent you from having your binders or anything. That's all domestic violence, but it's not recognized under Oklahoma law. Mental abuse, financial abuse, and so on is not recognized as domestic violence in law because they can't prove it, right? The only thing that Oklahoma law has laws about is physical violence because they can document bruises. This I was told yesterday while I was sitting in a courtroom. I was discussing this with a lawyer, and we went over some of the basic laws, or non existent laws, I should say. For the post separation legal abuse, the only laws that apply in Oklahoma is for married people during a divorce. Frivolous claims, manipulation in the court system for child custody, going back and forth to court because they want to keep modifying orders or going back for the same order over and over and over just to waste the financial situation and shit that somebody is going through after they have left a situation. That only applies for married people in Oklahoma. If you're unmarried and you have a kid with somebody and they are harassing you and taking you to court and fighting you for that child and interfering with your new relationships or, messing around with your work, making numerous court dates back to back so that you have to miss work and then they go after you because you can't financially support your child, stuff like that. None of that is covered in Oklahoma law unless you're married. And then it's still iffy. So the thing I'm going to be doing between now and the fall, when bills start getting put into votes and, the whole, I'm not making this video political, but if you know, okay? They only really accept them in the fall. They move them forward, they get votes, they pass, whatever. From now until fall, and then obviously after that as well. But my goal is going to be bringing awareness to this and setting up stands in numerous Oklahoma towns with a little booth that has flyers that I can hand out, an in-person petition for people to sign. I'm going to be creating an online petition as well. I'm going to be working with somebody, a representative somewhere. Like, I don't know exactly at this point who's going to listen to me and who's going to accept it, but I can guarantee it's, it's going to move forward. And I will be hand delivering letters to different representatives in their offices and setting and waiting for meetings. Like, I have nothing but time, right? So the first letter, and as I said, this is just a draft, but it is what I am going to be submitting because at the end of it, I'm asking for time to discuss it. And during the discussion, I'm going to bring up the issues that we have in the community, same-sex relationships or cis, trans, cis, non-binary, all the issues. And I need people who are willing to put a little bit of time in this, even if it is just sharing a petition or talking to your neighbor or holding a little group meetup and taking the cover letter with the pages for people to sign and walk around the park. If you're out getting some exercise, take it with you. Stop, talk to people. It's all about awareness. That's the only way that we are going to be able to move this forward. We, as a community, And I'm not specifically talking about the rainbows. There's many other communities. Domestic violence does not discriminate. It does not matter how you were raised, what class you have, your gender, your orientation, your religion, your heritage. Like, none of that is discriminated against. Like, domestic violence is one of the things that does not discriminate. So, as part of the LGBTQ plus community, this is our chance to not only help ourselves, but to help those around us. And I would almost bet that every person listening to this video knows somebody that has been in a domestic situation. If it's not you personally, it's somebody that you know. It just may be a friend of a coworker that pops in to deliver lunch every now and then, once every 3 months they pop in. But you know that person. That person may have a domestic situation going on, or they may be a survivor of one. But the thing of it is, we have to do this as a community. We have to do this as citizens of Oklahoma, where this community and that community and this religion and that culture and, this orientation or whatever, nobody is separated. Together, we are Oklahomans, and we need this law to pass. Time to stop the loopholes. It is time to stop the court harassment. And it is time to stop the abuse that hides in the paperwork. So, with all that said, the first letter that I am submitting says, "Dear Representative," and then his name and stuff. "I am writing as a constituent who is deeply concerned about critical gap in Oklahoma's domestic violence laws. At present, our statutes primarily recognize physical harm as the basis for protection and criminal accountability. However, emotional abuse, coercive control, and financial abuse, all well-documented forms of domestic violence, remained largely unaddressed in state law, despite their severe and long-lasting impact on victims and children. Across the country, more states are beginning to acknowledge that domestic violence is not limited to physical injury. The emotional manipulation, isolation, intimidation, and financial control can be just as damaging, often trapping victims in unsafe situations and preventing them from seeking help. These forms of abuse also place a significant burden on our courts, social service systems, and communities. I am asking you to consider sponsoring legislation that would recognize emotional abuse, coercive control, and financial abuse as legally actionable forms of domestic violence. Provide clearer pathways for victims to seek protective orders based on patterns of non-physical violence. Establish penalties or interventions for individuals who use these tactics to control, intimidate, and destabilize a partner or co-parent. And align Oklahoma with emerging national standards that treat domestic violence as a pattern of power and control, not just physical injury. Such legislation would not only protect survivors, but also strengthen family stability, reduce long-term trauma for children, and to give courts better tools to identify and intervene in harmful situations before they escalate. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss this issue further or provide additional information. Many Oklahomans are living with forms of abuse that our laws do not yet recognize, and they deserve the same level of protection as those experiencing physical violence. Thank you for your time, your service, and your commitment to the safety of families in our district. With that, at the end of it, I'm asking for time. I'm asking for him to sit down with me and hear me out. And during that time, I will bring forth another letter, like the final letter, that also includes different things under our umbrellas that also associate to cultural, religion, different types of abuse, like specifically layered out, that will expand on this initial letter. The second letter that I have is requesting legislation to expand post-separation legal abuse protection to unmarried individuals. Same thing applies. I'm submitting this letter basically as a draft, asking for time to where I can give him personally in hand another letter drafted that has more information, like specific information on how post-separation legal abuse affects not only every American, every Oklahoman, but also the LGBTQIA plus community in general, how it affects under different religions, different cultures, different classes, even just gender. Like, I plan to expand these into greater detail. And that's also why I'm wanting some people on board, because I can think of many things, but you might have a way of saying the same thing and combining like 2 or 3 things. Or you might come up with something that I haven't thought about. Or you might tell me, nah, you might not want to say that. Because I literally have no filters. Literally have no filters. But this one is about, like I said, the post-separation legal abuse protections. It says, I am writing as a constituent to urge the introduction of legislation that expands Oklahoma's recognition of post-separation legal abuse, PSLA. Currently, the concept is applied almost exclusively in the context of divorce. This leaves a significant portion of Oklahoma families, particularly unmarried parents and individuals who were never married to their abuser, without equal protection from legal harassment and coercive control. Post-separation legal abuse occurs when one party uses the court system to continue patterns of control, intimidation, and retaliation after a relationship ends. This can include excessive filings, repeated custody challenges, false allegations, manipulation of court procedures, and other tactics designed to drain financial resources, destabilize the victim, or force unwanted contact. These behaviors are not limited to divorced couples. In fact, they frequently occur in situations where the parties were never married. The gap in current law creates three major problems: unequal protections for unmarried survivors. Many victims of coercive control, dating violence, or non-marital parenthood have no legal framework recognizing the abuse they experience after separation. Increased strain on courts and public resources. Frivolous or retaliatory filings consume judicial time, delay legitimate cases, and burden taxpayers. Greater risk to children. When one parent weaponizes the legal system to punish the other, children experience instability, emotional harm, and prolonged conflict. To address these issues, I respectfully request that you consider sponsoring legislation that would define post-separation legal abuse as a form of coercive control applicable to all separated individuals regardless of marital status. Allow unmarried survivors to seek protective orders or legal remedies when they are subjected to repeated, intentional misuse of the court system. Provide judges with clearer guidance and authority to identify and limit abusive litigation patterns, and ensure that child-related cases prioritize safety, stability, and the prevention of legal harassment. This change would bring Oklahoma in line with emerging national standards that recognize coercive control and legal abuse as serious threats to families' well-being. It would also strengthen our court by reducing unnecessary filings and giving judges tools to intervene early. Most importantly, it would ensure that all Oklahomans, married or unmarried, have access to the same protections when facing post-separation abuse. I would welcome the opportunity to discuss this further or provide additional information. Thank you for your time, your service, and your commitment to the safety and stability of families in our district. And as I said, once there is a sit down with hopefully the representative that I have chosen, I do want to kind of do it as a bipartisan bill because I want both Democrats and Republicans on board with it. But as I stated in my initial letter to that representative, that I am bringing it to him, and I will leave it up to him to decide which Republican representative would be the best at moving this forward together. Because this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue. It is an everybody issue. And I personally feel like both sides should equally be involved in making this happen. I could just be fooling myself. Who really knows? It's the government. Anyway, the third letter that I have is not actually like a letter to anybody specific. It's just a dear fellow Oklahomans letter. This is what I have as the cover letter for the lined paper that people can sign. So this is basically the petition for signatures, the in-person signatures. And it is probably what I'm going to be using as well for the online petition once I actually get that set up, which my goal is to have that one set up over this weekend. So this letter states, Dear fellow Oklahomans, Oklahoma families deserve safety, stability, and fairness. Yet, our current domestic violence laws leave thousands of people unprotected. Right now, our statutes primarily recognize physical abuse, while emotional abuse, coercive control, and financial abuse remain largely invisible in the eyes of the law. These forms of harm are real, devastating, and often the earliest warning signs of escalating violence. There is another critical gap: post-separation legal abuse. When an abuser misuses the court system to harass, intimidate, or financially drain a former partner, it is only recognized in the context of divorce. This means unmarried parents, dating partners, and survivors who never married their abuser are left without equal protection, even though they face the same tactics and the same dangers. This is not a partisan issue. It is a public safety issue, a family stability issue, and a community well-being issue. Oklahoma can and must do better. That is why we are calling on Oklahomans across the state to join together and urge our legislators to update domestic violence laws to encourage emotional, psychological, and financial abuse, recognize post-separation legal abuse for all survivors, unmarried or married, give judges clearer tools to identify and stop abusive litigation patterns, protect children from prolonged conflict and court-based harassment, reduce the burden on our already strained court system by limiting frivolous retaliatory filings. These changes would strengthen families, reduce taxpayer waste, and bring Oklahoma in line with modern standards for survivor safety. We are asking you to stand with survivors, families, and communities by signing the petition calling for legislative action in the upcoming season. Your signature sends a clear message. Oklahomans believe in protecting all victims of abuse, not just those who fit the narrow legal categories. Every signature matters. Every voice matters. And together, we can push for laws that reflect the reality of abuse and the needs of our people. Please take a moment to sign the petition and share it with your friends, family, and community networks. Change begins when everyday Oklahomans speak up. And right now, your voice can help shape a safer future for us all. Thank you for standing up for justice, safety, and the well-being of Oklahoma families. And then I have included lined paper for signatures. That is what I'm going to be using when I set up the booths or when I drop it off at convenience stores or any businesses whatsoever that is willing to have this on their counter. If you would like to help me say enough is enough and help me move this forward, please get with me, comment below, email me, whatever, and let me know that you're on board. I can send you things that you can print. If you're close to me, I can meet up with you and give you stuff that I have already printed that you can hand out to people. I will post the link below this video whenever I get the online petition set up, which I may actually start working on now since the house is surprisingly quiet at the moment. Let me know your thoughts on this. And if you have ever done anything like this in the past, please get with me. I could use some guidance. But I'm also at the point to where I can guide others. So let's do this as a team. Let's make Oklahoma safer for the victims of domestic violence.